We're now moving to our next session, which is a discussion on investing in green construction for serviced apartments and hotels, and the yield, a good return, or is it a good return on investments? And we welcome back as our moderator Rajan Datar. Rajan, if you'd like to come onto the stage. And we also welcome Olivier Chavy, the CEO of Lux Collection, back to the stage. Mr. Ken Osei, the Principal Investment Officer of the IFC, to come onto the stage, please, behind me. He's all mic'd up. And last but by no means least, Professor Dimitrios Buhalis, Director of the International Centre for Tourism and Hospitality Research at Bournemouth University. Gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Right. So, I think we start with this. Let's just deal with this question. Why would investing in green construction for serviced apartments and hotels yield a good return on investment? Because in the old days, I'm not sure if that was the general attitude. That people thought it would be expensive and it would be unprofitable and all these things. But the paradigm has changed, the climate has changed, and the attitudes have changed. So I'm going to ask each of you what your view on this. We actually have a hotelier, an investment expert, and an academic here. So between the three of you, you should be able to solve this one. Let's get the hotelier's perspective. Why does it work?
It's a good topic. My very first exposure to sustainability was back in around 2000. I was working with the board of Hermes and with the CEO, Patrick Thomas. And we were working on a project in Qatar, educational city, with an iconic architect called Renzo Piano. For those who know well architecture, Renzo Piano is one of the top 3 in the history of architecture. And we flew to Qatar, and the goal was to build a hotel 100% sustainable. And I was looking at the project with big eyes, and how can you do 100% sustainable in Qatar, educational city? And the goal was every kilowatt used, the property would generate the same level. So we started to work with Renzo Piano on a modular roof and depending on the sun and depending on the wind. And nowadays, I understand better the why behind this project. His Highness was surrounded by visionary people, and they understood very early that sustainable would be key for the next couple of decades. So just your question is why? Anyway, when you go to financing and to rank and grade a project, you have a huge part of sustainability to fill up, okay? And I would not say that your interest rate and the financing itself depend on this part, but it does, it's part of the process. So it's today, it's a norm, which is great. It became a norm, okay? And then longer term, not optimizing the technology in sustainability would be a professional mistake. Just given an example, ignoring nanotechnology for the windows of a property, where depending on the sun and you have a different level of shades and so economy inside of air conditioning and all of this. Ignoring how far we can go in the technology today would be such a huge mistake. It would shorten the lifespan of your project anyway.
Right. Which is crucial, yeah. So it makes sense to do it, basically what we're talking. And also, and we'll come back to this, Ken, in the sense of investment decisions now are very much predicated on making sure that all the ESG criteria are met. You'll be penalised if you don't do it.
And last point, the beauty of regulations across the world is if you can't fulfill your sustainable needs for your own project, you can compensate elsewhere, like have some solar panels in a small island remote to compensate what you can't achieve on your current project, which is nice to have as well.
Yeah. So, Dimitrios, tell me, from your perspective, from the academic perspective, how have you seen this sea change, in a sense, going from where it was a slight burden, if you like, to today, where actually it is more profitable?
I think it's quite critical to see with the energy prices how much it costs operationally. In the Mediterranean hotel, it cost about 10 euros per day for air conditioning for one room. So obviously your profit margin is being eaten by energy consumption. And unless you have actually done the design and the development sustainably, you'll spend a lot of money operating the hotels and spending a lot of money on this. But there are two issues here. One is when you're building something new versus when you're converting something that has been built 20 years ago. And that is where I think you'll find much more expensive to convert an old property where you need to do a whole range of new infrastructure. From the investment point of view, that is becoming more complicated. But also I'd like to bring the agenda around a little bit, because if you've got a sustainable hotel and a green hotel that is observing all the ECG and all the rest of it, you are then motivating a lot of the young people to work with you, because they would like to be part of the new generation, especially my students. They are really keen to work with operators that are ethical, they're environmentally friendly, they're doing good to their communities, they're engaging with all the different people, and they're preserving the environment in a regenerative way, not only to reduce what I'm costing to the environment and to my community, but doing in a regenerative way that I'm supporting the communities, I'm supporting the environment to improve things. And I think that's another huge benefit, is attracting and retaining the right talent that is part of the tourism development, and it's part of the contribution to society and communities.
We'll come back to some of that as well, and I think also in terms of consumers, guests have also the similar attitudes. And
exactly.
Hold on,
Go on.
I liked what Dimitrios said about the 10 euro per night in air conditioning. We are still at the edge of stone in our industry, you know that. Why do we charge the same price for someone checking in at 2 in the afternoon, checking out midday the day after, versus a guy checking in at 9 p.m., checking out at 6 a.m. in the morning? It's the same price.
Yeah.
One day our industry will start to yield cost versus yielding price.
Yeah.
Just
how close are we to that? How much energy you use, how much whatever you use, all comes into the actual end price that you pay.
Yeah. We are all top line driven, rate driven, RevPAR driven, and not cost per stay driven in our marketing and the way we operate. Today, you rent a car, most of the car rental company, if you keep your car 1 day and 2 hours, they charge you 1 day and 2 hours. In our business, we would charge 2 days.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very annoying from a customer's point of view, I've got to say, sometimes. Okay, Ken, tell me, how have you seen things change so that we are in a situation now where it is profitable to have a green construction and running of your hotel?
So I think, first of all, we've got to change the narrative around the question itself, right? So this one aspect is around compliance. In other words, you're doing it because of ESG. But there's a different paradigm that we have to think about, right? Which is around, there's a report which is available, produced by IFC 2023, available online, about building green. Roughly 40% of greenhouse gas emissions are actually attributable to the built environment, which is surprising. Because we often think of factories as but the reason why is because the built environment includes steel, concrete, cement, which are big parts of the polluting environment. So as you think about new builds, as Professor was saying, the cost of the building, a lot of the building itself, is attributable to things that contribute to greenhouse gases. So if in the design stage of a new building, one can conceptualize the choice of building materials that are light on the climate, the choice of the design, the positioning of buildings, so it takes advantage of sunlight, you actually end up reducing the actual cost of the infrastructure itself. Then the other component has to do with the operations. So the use of boilers, chillers, air conditioning, all of the things that keep buildings comfortable also add to the cost of operations. So actually building green and sustainably, when you build it into the actual operating cost, the construction cost, does not necessarily add to the cost of the building, because in the long run, you're actually reducing the cost of the investment, both at the outset and during its operating life. The other aspects of, that's the E part. And the social part, the S part of ESG, is even how you actually service the hospitality project. So if you involve the community in provision of food and beverage, so you're sourcing locally, produce, etc., you may actually also benefit your cost structure rather than importing everything, distributing it. So we have a lot of projects around the world where produce is imported. And all of that's adding to the cost base. So you have to have a high cost base in order to make money. So in essence, if you think about it differently, having a product that is lower cost usually also includes climate-friendly, environmentally sustainable. The last part I'd like to touch on is finance itself is changing. There's now debt you can actually get, which as IFC, we're very involved with, sustainability-linked loans. So if your pricing of your project can benefit if you actually have aspects of the project that are climate and sustainable. Green bonds, so there's a new set of instruments that are actually benefiting climate-smart hotels, which then make it more profitable as an investment.
Yeah, I want to come back to, go on, Dimitrios.
I just want to bring two things into the discussion. There's a good friend called Carlos who is now running the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Doha. So I work in a hotel, I manage the property where he was the head chef. And what he did is he took a garden and he created all his nice, beautiful things that he was cooking with. It was basil, he was all the different things that he was cooking. And what he did every 3 o'clock every afternoon, he was taking the guests around to actually smell the ingredients and look into his garden. So what a beautiful thing. Instead of buying in plastic packs basil coming from Holland or wherever, he had created his own garden. He was using it for cooking. He was creating an experience for the customer, and all that ecologically, economically, and everything else all together. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'd like to add to the agenda is we need to increase the brief a little bit to bring accessibility as well in this. Mm-hmm. Because accessibility, again, very, very similar to what you were saying. With accessibility, you may have an initial investment of slightly more, but actually being inclusive and being able to attract people with different abilities and disabilities and engaging, and also having an operating hotel that is, doesn't have steps, doesn't have any thresholds, housekeeping can go through, cleaning robots can go through increasingly, because unless you've got that, robots cannot go through. It's return on investment so much better in the longer term.
Thank you. I mean, just in terms of, let's approach looking at a new hotel. In terms of construction, building materials, where are you getting them from? Where are you sourcing them from? Are they coming from all the way overseas? How much are you working with the local environment?
Well, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. There are some materials, depending on where you build, has to come from abroad. And then you have the so-called the Chinese impact, where you bring some materials from China, either some OSNE, some FFNE, or even some construction material. You can't go around this. You can have the best intent on earth, but if you build in some countries, in remote countries or island, for example, we have a property in Maldives. We're doing a renovation right now. It's not only coming overseas, obviously, but overseas from far. So it would not be fair to say it has to be local. No, it doesn't fly. It's the way you build, and it's the way you design. It's the way you you conceptualize your project, that you can keep in mind the sustainability side of the project.
And the other point which was raised was local sourcing. How much are you getting food, everything else, from the local community?
A lot, much more than you think. A lot. Yes, for sure. And you help the local market and the local production, for sure. Yeah. And not only for some quality reason or for some ESG reason, it's as well for some cost reason. As my friend just said, the cost part is critical, and not having to ship or to use air freight for supplies is key.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, I mean, most of us, if you stay in a hotel, you have a fruit display.
Yeah.
Well, if the fruit is from local,
Yep.
it's more likely to be fresh.
Yep.
Refrigeration costs go down. So there's some very practical aspects of local sourcing, which is not simply, if you ship your papaya halfway around the world in order to serve it, the odds are the guests are not getting the best experience, right? On the built environment, and so, we have a couple of examples. There was a hotel built, not a plug for the hotels, it's called Royal Saint-Chi Resorts, right? Designed by a couple of Zimbabwean architects who had done Pamushanu. And they actually went to the country and said, well, can't we get gum tree poles local? It would be quite easy just simply to import them. But then they actually went around the country and said, well, this kind of timber is available locally. So in the long run, what it did is added to the aesthetics of the building. It might not necessarily have been the cheapest if you looked at it purely in terms of concrete or whatever. But over the life cycle of the project, you can probably also design, and this may not apply to city hotels or whatever, but especially as you look at resort hotels, there might be opportunities to have a lighter design that is actually using less of the traditional steel concrete in the same quantities, and that may also improve the cost of the project.
And that's an interesting point, because you've got a variety of different sorts of hotels, right? So the ones that are the most amenable to this way of working, Olivier, which ones are those for you in the Lots Collective?
The one who are less what?
The ones that are most easily converted into a greener way of building and operating.
So out of Mauritius, I would say the one we're building in Vietnam right now. It's a floating hotel built with prefab rooms. We build an average of 4 rooms per 2 weeks. So let's say two rooms per week. So this one is very sustainable. Instead of building on the earth, we build on the GT, and the prefab are made on ships miles away from the coast. So this one is a state of the art, I would say.
Yeah,
for sure.
And technology is surely going to make this easier. Chemistry, even the way that building materials are built together. Do you have any? Can you see where that's going? Any of you? Can you give me some?
I just mentioned nanotechnology. I think those who are using it the most is Apple with Apple Store and some clinic and hospitals around the world. So those are anti-cyclonic windows with some nanotechnology inside. So either with your app or with connection to the satellite, depending on the position of the sun, the tinting of your glass changes from 10% to 90%. So if you're facing west, for example, and after 5 p.m. sun sets, all of a sudden your windows are darker, so with much less need of air conditioning. So this technology is used more and more in hospitality now. It's new, was presented in Saudi to hospitality maybe 7 years ago, and it's coming. I see it more and more often. That's just an example.
There are a lot of technological solutions that will come in, and artificial intelligence is going to be very interesting in this, because we will constantly monitor different places and understand what is the situation. And we'll understand when people are using facilities and when people do not use facilities. And I think what the customers will say is that, can I control my room from my mobile, from an application? Can I control the temperature? Because what happens is that often people leave their condition running all day, so they can have a cool room when they come back. But in fact, they don't need this. They just need to start their conditioning 20 minutes before they arrive. Can I deal with the lights at different times? And a lot of the things that we really need to look at is the process, the operating process the hotels have got. How many hotels do I go where they leave, the housekeeping is doing the room, and then they leave their condition running and they leave the lights running because they've been told that that will improve my experience. Equally, how many hotels do I go that the minute I get out the card, everything dies? So I cannot charge my mobile phone, I cannot charge my computer and things like that. So what's happening is that we don't have a smart operating procedures in many of the hotels.
Yeah.
And what we need to address, and that we can address tomorrow, is that. And then technology is going to come on top of that to create solutions that they're smart solutions based on what people are. I mean, lights. If you have a garden, if you've got a hotel with lots of gardens in different places, do you light all the garden all night, or do you have the light that is operating at particular times? And if I want to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning, everything's dark. If you have smart lighting, you have lights where it's needed at different times based on the needs of consumers. These are the things that we need to bring in, and these are the things that are going to be greener, but also better on the customer experience.
And just to add to that,
Yeah.
I mean, we also talk about the actual inside of the buildings, right? The use of materials, sheets, towels, you know. So as you improve the type of building, the materials, right? Recyclables, et cetera, you can actually reduce the unit cost of materials used inside various parts of the hotel, which again can bring down the cost of the operations. I mean, nowadays I think it's somewhat standard to have hotels where you walk in and you have to put in the key card in order to switch on the lights.
Yeah.
So that's an example of
And people put their cards in, they get 2 cards and they
put a
leave one
credit card in order to keep the lights
Yeah.
going, right?
Yeah.
Well, increasingly you'll find some hotels are actually sort of creating systems to prevent that from happening. Because the principle of it is actually not just for, I mean, yes, it's good for the environment, but it's also good for the operating costs. So if you're not in the room, the hotel would like you to reduce your cost of operating, use up of electricity, water, etc. Even things like water reticulation systems, so how you water the gardens, what you do with the landscaping.
Yep.
So these are all things that they don't diminish the actual guest experience, but they help reduce the cost, and they have a benefit in terms of environmental and
I
sustainability.
remember 91, Intercontinental created the first environmental manual, and then it may be 92, and then it gave that to everybody. It was about 400 pages, and they had very simple solutions, like put a brick into the flushing system to reduce the amount of water that goes through. Very simple. What the Intercontinental did in 92, it got all the employees a global competition to provide ideas about what can they do. What the amazing ideas that they came forward, they created the manual. Then they went to all the other hotel companies and they said, here is the manual. We really want you to implement what we did. It's not only about our properties, it's all about hospitality in general. I don't think that we have learned from this. I think there are baby steps in different places, but we're still a long way to implement industry standards that they're looking into the environment in the best possible way.
Olivier, the professor mentioned earlier on about how staff are motivated, younger staff are motivated by working in a greener situation. What about the customer effect? Do people actively want to come to your hotels because they know they are greener?
Well, for the MICE market, it's quite easy. You know, they want the stamp, they want the certification and
Yeah, right.
in the contract. So all those big laboratories or whatever the firms are, they want the label green when they sign a contract. So the MICE market is already there. For the FIT business, for leisure business, the new generation is much more sensitive to green and sustainable than the older generation because they've been educated with it.
Yeah.
And they own their future. Okay.
And you know this from interaction with them.
No doubt.
There's psychology into this. If you go and you say you're trying to prevent people from doing this, they'll go, no, I've paid for it, thank you very much. But if you make them part of the problem and part of the solution, they'll say, yeah, I'll do my bit. And actually they'll go one step forward. Back on the technology thing, we're looking into, in Bournemouth University, we're doing a research project now on nudging. Yeah. Where nudge people to have the right behavior. One of the things is how much food do you take from a buffet? And that then goes to food waste. So it's really about looking to different things and also looking to what have you taken and what people leave behind. So if you leave behind broccoli, you may work with yourselves that you don't need so much broccoli because people don't like broccoli, they like something else. So it's all about looking to all of those solutions to come forward with things that they do not take away from the experience. And also you can say, quite often I'm going to business conference where in hot climates where everybody is wearing their jackets and they've put their condition on 17. And we're talking about sustainability. And I said, can you take your jackets off, please? Increase that to 22, 23, which is still comfortable. And, if someone, an operator, will look into this, they'll see the saving that they'll do in this thing. Asia used to be very, very, very bad. Hong Kong and, some of the Asian countries, you are constantly freezing because they had their condition at that level that was killing you, but they're killing their business account. We need to be a little bit more clever than that.
So if we wore just shirts and shirts and shorts, well, like t-shirts and shorts, that'd be like.
Well, if we were losing the jacket, it would not be the end of the world. Yeah. If you're in a climate where there's 40 degrees outside and they've set their condition on 18 inside,
Yeah.
I was going to say, food waste is a great example, right, of something that, if managed well, can really contribute to the profitability of an establishment, right? So simply having an idea of what's on the menu, what gets consumed, what doesn't get consumed, because if you don't consume it, you spend less, and the guests are not getting the benefit of it anyway, and it improves your operating margins. So that's an example of sort of the narrative around ESG is profitable.
Yep.
Because it actually contributes directly to your bottom line.
Yep. And Olivier, on the because you referred to something before, the shower barometer, or meter. The carrot and the stick thing. Is that there's a reward, isn't there, for the customer who uses the little?
It's depending on the consumption of your water. So the test we're doing in Maldives and Le Mans is if you don't go above a threshold of liter per shower, you can have an upgrade to the a la carte from your half-board allowance. You go to the a la carte restaurant with no supplement. It's just it's a testing, okay? I received those samples like a month ago. But the thing is, in Maldives and Le Mans, we have the salted water issue. So the cost is not €10 per room. It's crazy. So 1 liter of water is gold. So we are working on it.
Yeah.
Educating the client.
Yeah. A similar thing was in if you don't need housekeeping, they give you some vouchers for cocktails, and it's happening in some places where
that's right. Yeah.
They've got if you've got a resort and you're changing 40% of the resort, people are coming and going. Housekeeping is going to be under enormous pressure. So quite often they are telling you, look, on Tuesday, can we skip housekeeping from your room? And I'm going to give you a cocktail so you're kind of negotiating.
Well, the beauty is with the new generation coming in now and having more and more access to luxury, those kind of initiatives are not forbidden in luxury anymore.
Yeah.
You can do housekeeping every other day in luxury if you explain it well, without even giving you a voucher, but just for the reward of contributing to sustainability. Yep. So the Gen Z or the Gen Y or those 30, 35 who now have the power, the horsepower to come to luxury, I mean, the whole say, yes, but not in luxury, you can't do this in luxury. No, it does happen in luxury.
It's interesting as well, because you mentioned the papaya, you know, if you want some exotic fruit. Luxury travel used to be, oh, I can get all these exotic things in my room, and that's part of the whole thrill of being in this expensive luxury hotel. But that's changed.
Yeah.
But I also want to add, there's also the power of interest rates, right? So hotels and hospitality establishments are long-dated assets. They're built with some own money, which is equity, and then you borrow the rest. So that sustainability-linked loan, that 1% change in interest rate, which is going directly to the funders, not to the owners. If you move to assets like sustainability-linked loans, we just done a very big one with Orascom development in Egypt, right? So a large hotel developer building several properties, getting the cost of money down because they're improving the sustainability actually directly goes to the bottom line.
Goes to the bottom line. Now, there's one aspect that we should talk about, which is that fundamentally, with this current situation, with governmental regulations, with all these things, actually, it's going to be impossible to build a hotel, to run a hotel, unless you are following ESG guidelines. I mean, investors won't invest unless that's the case. Can you expand on that?
So I think, look, it's a fundamental sea change in terms of how all of us are thinking about the environment, right? It used to be something you did because it was good to do. Now it's moving into beyond compliance to a must-do, right? And it's not just for the development itself. It's also for its customers. So as you were saying, meetings, conferences, etc., procurers of those facilities will request, is your facility EDGE certified? Is it ESG compliant? And it's because they themselves want to show in their procurement that they are basically doing the right thing. So it's moving more and more to the customer and then back to the buyer of the service. And hotels and hospitality establishments have to be compliant with procurement standards. So that governments, for example, if government starts saying, listen, is a conference venue one that is ESG rated X, well, that's going to have a direct impact on the establishment.
It's certification at the level that where we can create standardized certification measurements for this kind of thing.
It does allow measurement.
Sorry?
It does allow measurement, which is, you want to have this on the Garmin on your dashboard,
Yeah.
and know where you come from and what you want to achieve. So those KPIs are key to allow you to compare year over year, Apple with Apple, and no, they're key. I'm 100% in favor.
And what about greenwashing and the accusation of greenwashing? How sensitive are you to that? I mean, from Talier's point of view, and do you get reaction from customers saying,
yeah, of course,
this kind of thing? Yeah, tell me some more about that.
Well, it's part of a lifestyle. It was trendy many years ago, and now it's part of your lifestyle. Most of our clients, they own it, and they live it in their personal life, in their own houses. And you have incentive in many, many countries around the world to ensure waterproofing or heating proofing from your house, and the government they subsidize those. So it's part of the lifestyle of our consumer now. So it's not hotelier educating the client for this. It's just, will I find in the hotel what I'm doing myself for my own life?
Yep.
The consumer is so close to actually expose you immediately, because if you are doing something that you don't,
exactly.
they're gonna go on social media.
They would go crazy on social media and just finger point your back of.
And then there's no point back, because you cannot defend it, because they'll say, here's the evidence. It's on TikTok, it's on Twitter, on Facebook, not Twitter, on X, on Facebook, on whatever, and then you're done. It's just
So we're also moving to a world where standards are emerging, right? So effectively, I mean, in the area of finance, you're going to find there's green bond taxonomy. So things that agreed standards of what you can call a green building. So that you cannot greenwash. I mean, you could try and do it on your own, but sooner or later, I mean, you would be busted because, somebody will ultimately say, well, do you meet the standard of the market in classifying something green?
Yeah. We've got to wrap up very, very quickly.
I just want to share
as
a closing an anecdote. Back in the 90s, I was a young GM of a palace in France, and I thought I was the wisest of all. So I decided to put in the tank of the WC a red brick. So it would go from 10 liters of water to 7 liters of water. But little I knew that the brick would create some clot and the water would become red. And we had to clean up and to change the whole plumbery of the toilet in every bedroom. But I was the king of sustainability at that time.
Well, I'm glad you just didn't give up then.
I never gave up. Yeah.
Luckily, there's standards now on what you should do and not do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as I say, we are trying to catch up time, right, Paul? So we need to I'm afraid to say we need to close this one now.
Okay.
However, these gentlemen will be available, whether they like it or not, over the lunchtime period. So if anybody wants to talk to them about some of their ideas and experiences, then please do approach them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.